Hello, seventh grade. Hopefully, you all are having a good chance to just recover from this little break that we've had, and hopefully, we get back soon. And hopefully, you're helping out at the house and just doing things you can to make sure we're being a good person, because that's always important. So, look forward to having you back if we do get to come back. I hope we do. Need to get some normalcy going again. So, but today we're going to talk about lesson 85. This is for the 7th grade math, okay? And I'm just going to kind of go through the examples, and we'll kind of go from there. As you can see, I'll get out of the way here, but as you can see on the board, on the far left side, okay, I have example 1, and then on the far right side, I have example 2. Okay, we'll talk about those in a second, but the title of today's lessons is Order of Operations, which we've done. Okay, the only thing that we're adding new here now is there's going to be positive and negative numbers, which we have also done. Okay, so let's just retouch a little bit up on both of those things before we even talk about the examples. Okay, so order of operations, I think we all know this. I'm going to write this up here. As you can see, PEMDAS. Okay, that's the acronym to remember what this stands for. Some people remember this by saying, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." I've heard it other ways. If you got another way, use that way too, just as long as you can remember the order of PEMDAS. I always learned again, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." So what those are implying is this is the order that you have to solve these math problems. You have to do them in a very specific order. Okay, so what the P stands for is parentheses, and that's probably spelled wrong, so don't laugh at me. Okay, parentheses. The E is exponents. The M is multiply. D is divide. And then the A and the S are add and subtract. So right here, this is the order that you actually do them in, okay? Now, just to explain a little bit about the order, this one's always first, okay? Now, always number 1, the parentheses are. So if there's stuff to do inside parentheses, not just one number in there, as you can see right here, this just has one number. But next to something, that means multiply. Okay, and we'll get into that in the future. But right here, let's see. Here, in the parentheses, is 2 minus 4. For that problem, we would have to do that first. So parentheses is still first. Exponents, you do second. Okay, and in both of these problems, we do not have any exponents, so we will not be doing those. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different. Okay, multiply and divide. Okay, multiply is listed first, but that doesn't always mean you do that one first. Okay, those two you kind of treat as equal, and whatever one is listed first in the problem from left to right, that's which one you do first. Okay, so I'm going to put like a golf score tie. They are both tied for third. Right? Sometimes you do divide first, and sometimes you multiply first. Again, what does it depend on? It depends on which one is listed first. Okay? And the same thing goes for add and subtract. Okay? Just because the add is listed first does not mean that's the one you always do first. Okay? You do them in order of which one comes first, left to right. Okay, so this one is also, these two are also tied for fourth. Okay, hopefully that kind of clears up a little bit about the order that you do them in. Remember, PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, is the acronym I use. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. Okay? So that's a little bit on the order. Now, again, before we solve these, I want to talk about positive and negative numbers, okay? We've talked about this before with the 7th grade here, and I just want to reiterate that, remember, when you are multiplying or when you are dividing, okay, you need to have an even amount of negative numbers in the problem. Okay, let me say that again. You need, when you are doing a math problem and you are dividing or you're multiplying, okay, you need to have an even amount of negative numbers in the math problem. I'll give you some examples, okay? So, let's say we have, let's start out with the easy one. We all know this, okay? 2 times 2. Obviously, that's a positive answer. We know that equals 4. There are no negatives in here, okay? I know 0 is not technically, well, kind of even, but so that would be implying there are no negative numbers. There's 0 negative numbers. That works. Here's where it gets different. As soon as we add, say it's the first one, as soon as we add a negative number, and I'm going to take that times a positive number, okay, my answer has to become a negative answer. And here's why. Here's what I meant by that you need to have an even amount of negatives. As you can see, you have part 1 of the first number, you have the second number, and you have the answer. So negative 2 times 2. There is one negative number right here. You need to complete the answer with the second negative number, because remember, when you do the math problem, when you're multiplying and dividing, you need to have an even amount of negative numbers. Okay? So, I'll do this again. Let's say you switched it. Let's say you left the first one as 2, and you do times negative 2. Again, there is only one negative number in that problem so far. So that means your answer has to be a negative, so there's 2, an even amount of negative numbers in the problem. Okay? Do you see that again? I hope that's making sense. Okay? Now, and for the last one here, if it's negative 2 times negative 2, well, guess how many we have? We already have 2 negative numbers. Okay? So we don't want our answer to be negative, because that would not be correct. The answer now then goes and returns back to positive. Okay? That's kind of the basics of it. I'll do one. Let's say you have 3 numbers you're multiplying. So we'll do this one. 2 times 2 times 2. Okay? 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Okay? So here we go again. Remember, you need to have an even amount of negative numbers when you are multiplying or dividing. Okay? So let's say I changed all 3 of them to negative 2. Well, again, you need to have an even amount of negatives. So we have already 1, 2, and 3 negatives. So our answer is going to be the same as it was up here. It's going to be 8, but you need to make sure you have that 4th negative, because there's got to be an even amount of negatives. So it's not 8, it's actually negative 8. Okay? Hope that makes sense a little bit. We're going to do just one example of a division problem so you can see, but again, it's the same premise. If you have, you need to always have an even amount of negatives. Okay, so if we said 8 divided by negative 2, in that math problem, we only have one negative. We need to have an even amount. Okay, so our answer is going to be negative 4. If we had 2 negatives in the math problem as such, negative 8 divided by negative 2. We already have 2 negatives in the math problem. We don't need another one. Okay, so then the answer just goes back to 4 as such. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background on, and we've talked all this stuff before, so hopefully this was, it started making sense as we were explaining this again. But that was order of operations, PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, okay, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. And then we also talked about how many negatives you need in the math problem to make it an acceptable answer, okay? And remember, the answer is you need an even amount, okay? So we are going to do examples 1 and example 2 on the board. As you can see, examples 1 is on the far left and example 2 is on the far right, so you can kind of follow along as I go ahead and do this. One thing to remember is, this is crucial, is make sure you rewrite your new math problem. Okay, because if you're trying to just do it in your head, 9 times out of 10, there's one little mistake and then the whole answer's wrong. And that's frustrating when you do all your work, good, and you miss the answer by one little subtraction sign or a negative sign or whatever it may be. Okay, so again, make sure you rewrite the math problem. Okay, we'll go over to the far left board. This is example 1 here. Okay, and we are going to start with order of operations, PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Okay, so I will put that back up here just so you can see it, so you can remember the order. Okay, I'm not going to fill anything more out. The middle of the board will be the separator, so you have a problem on the right and a problem on the left. Okay, as you come over here. So there is nothing inside these parentheses. We don't need to do this one. Okay, it's just this number is by itself right now. I've already taught this. There is nothing inside these parentheses, but when you get 2 of them next to each other, that means to multiply. So we will multiply that. And then there's a division problem in the parentheses there, and that would imply we need to do that one first, okay? Because there's actually a math problem in the parentheses. So we're going to take -2 divided by 2, okay? And again, remember how many how many negative numbers are already in that math problem? -2 divided by 2. Well, there's 1. And we need to have an even amount, so my answer's got to be -1. Okay? So this is going to turn into -1, and I'm going to write a parenthesis by it, and now I'm going to rewrite the entire equation that I did not use. Okay? So I did not use this minus sign. I did not use the -2, or this -2, or the plus, or the -2 in front. And now I restart everything again. I look at the math problem and I say, okay, are there any parentheses? There are not. There's no exponents, but there is a multiply. And again, remember, these 2, multiply and divide, are treated the same. So whatever one is listed first in left to right is what you do. In this case, there's only multiplication. So these 2 right here, I like to make these 2 to show that that's the one we're doing next. So -2 times -2. There are already 2 negative numbers in that problem. That's an even number. So we don't need any more. So -2 times -2 is 4. Again, rewrite everything that you have not used. Have not used the negative, or the -1, or the plus and the -2. I have a new problem now again, and here we start looking again. Which one order of operations? Okay, well, remember, add and subtract are treated the same as well. Whatever one is listed first from left to right, that's which one you do. So let's just start on the far left, because we got pluses and minuses in here. The first one we should come to is an addition sign. That's the one we do first. Okay, so we are going to look at -2, and we are going to add 4 to that. Now, just so we know here real quick, when I said we needed an even amount of negative numbers, that only applies for multiplication and division. When we are going to add these two, you actually have to just add them as normally, okay? So, sometimes I like to form to it as money. I say, okay, hey, I owe someone $2, but I have $4. So how much do I technically have after I pay my debt off? And the answer would be a positive $2, or just 2. Okay, now again, rewrite everything that you have not used. I have not used the minus, and I have not used the -1. The last trick that we didn't talk about here yet today, we have mentioned this before, okay, but now this is going to be where we see it again. When you have 2 minus a -1, okay, what that really means is 2 plus 1. That's what it really means. When you have a negative subtracted by another negative, or a minus sign next to a negative sign, they all change to addition. That's just the way the math goes. They all change to addition, 2 plus 1, and it's actually going to be a final answer of positive 3. Okay? So, order of operations, okay, PEMDAS, parentheses first, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract, okay? Let's go to example 2. This will be the last one we do, and then if we have questions, we can ask those by email or YouTube live. Okay. Example 2. It says, if I were to read this over here, we have something to do inside the parentheses, and I hate that the book does this because it throws off the PEMDAS that they all tell us to teach, and it's just a little bit frustrating, but we'll get through it. So let's just start here. Okay, the parentheses. So 2 minus 4. Okay, that's going to go into the negative numbers, and that's going to be -2. 2 minus 4, -2. I'm going to keep that in parentheses. Okay. Again, rewrite your entire equation. Did not use the -3 or the -4. Or the -2 with parentheses, or the -3 with parentheses, or the plus and the -3, -4 with parentheses, fraction bar 2. Which, remember, the fraction bar just means divide. It's just another way of writing it. Okay, so we're going to look from left to right because there is some parentheses. But as you can see, there's nothing inside these parentheses besides one number. And we don't need to do anything with that. There are no exponents. Okay, so now we start looking, okay, where does it say multiply or divide? And you start from left to right. So, right here is our very first multiply. And you can do these kind of in succession. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So, starting from left to right. Remember, when you have parentheses next to a number, that means multiply. That's what it means, okay? So here's our equation. -3 times -2. -3 times -2. We already have 2 negatives. We don't need another. Okay, so the answer is going to be 6. Okay, let's just rewrite it again. -4, -2, -3, plus okay, again, I just rewrote it all. Okay, so now, again, from left to right, that's got to be the order you do it. Okay, the next left to right is going to be the 4 and the -2. Okay, now, you can look at this as a -4, or you can just treat it as a 4. But whatever one you want to do it as, you got to make sure you remember how you did it, and I'll show you. I'm just going to look at it as a 4. And I apologize here. I hope this is still recording. My computer froze on me. Yeah, it's still recording. Okay. Sorry. So I'm going to look at that as just a 4. So I have 4 times negative 2. 4 times negative 2. That is, there's only one negative. So it needs to be a negative 8 would be my answer. Now, remember what I said. I'm going to look at this as a 4. Since I didn't look at it as a negative 4, I need to include this minus sign back down here. Okay, so I'm going to put this, my answer in parentheses. I'm going to drop my negative sign. And then I'm going to rewrite my problem again. Okay? Again, from left to right, order of operations. Okay? These two are next to each other in parentheses. That means to multiply. Negative times a negative is a positive. So I have negative 8 times negative 3. That's going to be a positive 24. I did not use the negative sign in front or the 6, and I'm now rewriting everything. Okay? Let's go to here. Instead of rewriting this last part, we can do the top part of the fraction. Okay? There's a multiplication up here on top. It says negative 3 times negative 4, because as you look, that's the next thing from left to right to do, multiplication-wise. So let's just do negative 3 times negative 4. There are 2 negatives already in that problem. You do not need another. That's going to be, don't forget to re-put your plus sign, because we didn't use it. And now negative 3 times negative 4, that's going to be 12 divided by 2. Okay, now we actually have a division sign here. Okay, so we need to go to the very end, and we need to change that. So we aren't going to start with 6 minus 24. We're going to start with 12 divided by 2. Okay, and we are going to get 6 plus 24. And then I just rewrote everything again. Okay, I just rewrote everything again. So when we go to add this up now, okay, 6 minus 24. Okay, that is negative 18. Negative 18. And then do not forget to plus 6 to that at the very bottom. I know that's getting a little bit small. I hope you can still read that. Looks like you can. Okay, negative 18 plus 6. That is going to be negative 12 for your final answer. Okay? Now, I know that was a little bit longer, but I wanted to make sure that we touched base on everything, that you still felt okay. Again, I don't know how much longer this is going to go. Hopefully we can come back to school this year and we get some normalcy back. Anyways, hope you're having a good time at home, and hope to see you soon. So, thank you.